You're listening to the Profit by Design podcast, episode 56.
It's much more meaningful to ask a question about something in an open-ended way that lets them explain the answer. And in doing so, they hear themselves provide their own solution to the problem.
You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question. What has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of How to Hire the Best, and your co-host on the Profit by Design podcast. Weekly, my co-host, Mike Bruno, and I bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests, who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire. Is your business running your life? Are you fed up with working crazy long hours only to lay awake at night worrying about cash flow or feeling totally angry and frustrated over what your team isn't getting done? If so, listen up. I've got something I want to share with you. At Tap the Potential, we have our small group coaching program that is designed for business owners just like yourself who are done. You're done with the way things are going and you're ready for a change, and not just any little Band-Aid change. You want a life-changing business transformation. That's what we specialize in at Tap the Potential. We turn life and cash-sucking small businesses into highly profitable, great places to work. And then we send those business owners on a 4-week vacation while the business runs without them. If that sounds good to you, I invite you to check out our small group coaching program at Tap the Potential, where we integrate Profit First, the Pumpkin Plan, and my book, How to Hire the Best, into our small groups to produce these transformations. All the while, we're working with you to be the leader you need to be to create this business that can run on its own while you have more life. Check us out, tapthepotential.com. Profit designers, if you've been listening to the podcast a while, you've probably picked up on a few themes. And that is that we like to get raw, vulnerable, and ask the powerful questions. We're curious. We want to know about the real experiences that people have. And today's guest is right in line with that. We have Jake Lipman joining me for a conversation. And Jake shares what his experience has been like as a business owner, working with myself and our team here at Tap the Potential for the last 2.5 years. He gets into what his business was like and what his experience was like as a business owner prior to working with us, and how he has grown and evolved and what he's continuing to work on with us at Tap the Potential. And what I really appreciate about Jake is his ability to ask powerful questions and listen and connect. He's very people-oriented, and he has built a tremendous culture in his business using his people's strength. And that really shines through in today's episode. So I'm excited to share this conversation with you. Before we dive in, I want to read you Jake's formal bio. Jacob Lipman has practiced immigration law for over 20 years. His practice focuses on employment-based immigration, counseling employers in complex immigration practice and policy concerns. Jake has lectured on immigration-related subjects in a variety of settings and has authored articles on corporate immigration compliance. He's recognized by the State Bar of California Board of Legal Specialization as a certified specialist in immigration and nationality law. Jake has been married for 26 years and has 7 children and 2 granddaughters. He enjoys hiking, golfing, preparing and eating amazing food, and generally goofing around. And he's also fluent in Spanish. So with that, let's dive in. So Jake, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I've been working with you now for 2.5 years. You've been listening to the podcast, and as we were getting ready to start the recording, you said, all right, let's get raw. And I thought, wow, he's going to fit right in here on the Profit by Design podcast, because that's what we do. We tell it like it is.
Yeah. Well, you asked me if anything was off limits, and I don't see it. I just want to put it all out there and share.
Be real, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's kind of take our profit designers back to the very beginning for you. How long have you been in business?
Oh, I've been in business since 1998.
1998.
Yeah.
And you and I were connected. Christine Era introduced us. Christine is also another one of our popular podcast guests that we've had on the show. And that was about 2.5 years ago. Do you remember what specifically was going on that made you think, yeah, I should work with Dr. Sabrina and tap the potential?
So Christine had gone to a QuickBooks conference, I think the annual conference, and I think got introduced to Profit First. And then she started talking about it. And if I remember how it went, she connected me to you. And that was kind of how the introduction came. But I think at that time, she noticed that we were growing and that we were reaching a level of business where we needed help to make it to the next level. And we'd been trying to kind of move up and make it to another level, but we'd been just kind of stuck there for a long time. And so I think that was the inspiration to connect us with you.
In that stuckness, do you remember what you personally were experiencing?
I think just trying to understand the steps that would be taken to move from kind of doing most of the work ourselves into creating a system that could be managed from above, if you will.
Yeah. And, I don't know about for you, but I know for myself, when that concept was first introduced to me, that I could possibly set up my business so that it's not me doing all the work, I could not wrap my head around that. It was like somebody was telling me words, and in my head, I was thinking, that's somebody else's reality. Somebody else can do that. I don't think I can do that. Not with what I do. And I'm curious, is that anything similar to what you might have been thinking?
Definitely. Our business is, I think, in a lot of ways, personality driven because we are a law firm and many of our clients are working with us because they like us. They like me. They like my partner. And so that's how the relationships formed. They didn't just come because they needed a product, although they do need some, the services that we do, but they have a lot of choices. And I think often the choices, it's related to who we are as the partners, as the people that for the, greatest span of time have just been doing most of the work. And so it's hard to break out of that when the clients expect that you'll be doing it, that you'll be the one delivering and being there to hold their hand and talk to them and help them.
So you're 2.5 years into this new way of thinking and doing business. What have you discovered about that?
I've discovered it's challenging to break out of that cycle, very challenging. But I've also discovered that through small incremental steps that the groundwork is being laid. And I don't feel like I'm really there yet, but I've been able to see more clearly what the path looks like to get there.
Yeah. And that piece about small steps. So, everyone works at their own pace and does things. Some people want to just jump right in and go, whoo, like rapid turnaround. And that can create a lot of fallout that has to be managed too. But the small steps forward, taken in a consistent direction, lead to big change over time.
I've seen that. I feel like even the small steps that we've made have changed my way of thinking and my attitude or my approach to problems and trying to move forward. Yes, I've come up against a lot of obstacles, and I think that's one of the themes in working with Tap the Potential for me has been that as I accept the challenges that come to me and as I come back with accountability, after trying to accomplish my goals, that I'm discovering where the weaknesses are and, where the gaps are. And so as I see those gaps, it is raw. It is, sometimes it's hard. I've discovered some things that are not going to be easy to fix. But to me, that's really valuable to know. Otherwise, you just walk around. You don't always know where the gaps are. You might just be walking over a landmine.
Right, right. And I know for myself, recently, I've been bringing in a lot of help on the marketing side. And as I have different eyes looking at marketing pieces and pointing things out, I think, oh my goodness, I had no idea. I didn't see that myself. And it's just that thing about having other eyes helping you look at things in a fresh perspective. Because we have so many blind spots that we have to manage that can, like you said, you can be walking over a landmine and not even know it.
I really enjoy working with my small group with Todd and Nancy, and just a shout out to them for being great. It's been over 2 years that we've been together in that group, and very, very just enlightening to work with, great people, but to see their challenges and then share my own. That's a great experience, even though they're, coming from very different backgrounds and the industries that they work in. There's so many similarities in the issues that we face, and the support is very meaningful to me that we have. Yeah.
And Dr. Nancy's been on the podcast, and I'm going to work on Todd some more, see if we can get him on here. What is it that you have really appreciated about the connection in the group that's been helpful to you as you've navigated some challenging circumstances?
Well, now working with the group for 2 years or more with Todd, I think it's the intimacy that's there. The level of connection that we have allows for, we've reached some pretty deep levels talking about personal challenges. Business challenges are there. We can talk about numbers, we can talk about strategy, but really at the end of the day, your ability to overcome those things is your personal drive or your, whatever grit you have there. And coming to others who are there to support and not judge, or just be kind of a, open ear to listen and to voice some of those fears or concerns and be very vulnerable that's been an experience I don't feel like I really had before with anybody that would listen or that would take interest in that way, and a format where I could feel free to voice a lot of those things. So, my closest friends or family might be afraid if I started talking like I do in the group, because I know the group is not going to worry that I'm going to fall apart and, run and hide or whatever. But my family and others that are close to me might worry if I express a lot of my real concerns.
Well, and I also think because they are not business owners, they don't understand necessarily how it feels to be worrying about cash flow or dealing with employee challenges. And the nice thing about being able to talk about that with other business owners who are not in your business, so to speak, they can be outside objective, they can be a sounding board, and they can share their own experiences that, may be somewhat loosely connected to what you're talking about. But that sparks something. It sparks an idea, or it sparks a new way for you to handle a situation.
Absolutely. As a provider, I have a lot of concerns about taking care of my family, about being an employer and taking care of our employees, all of that pressure. And then, of course, you have your own personal, challenges to deliver all of that. And so, these people, they know, they've been through a lot of it, many cycles. We've all been in business for quite a while. And so there's just so much valuable feedback coming from that. And yes, it is, it's coming from a great place. It's coming from a place of trust and confidence, especially after all the time now that we've worked together.
Mm-hmm. And the other piece that I think you started to talk about is really how personal and business are so intertwined, that who we are as a business owner comes from who we are as a person. And I've seen a lot of our clients at Tap the Potential, you included, courageously taking on that personal development work to be a better, more effective leader, and to really embrace, here are my blind spots as a leader. And now that I know about these things, what do I do about this?
Absolutely. For me, that's one of the more valuable things. But then also some of the tools I've received to decide what to do. The coach approach and reading, change your questions, change your life, some of those things, and getting a lot of coaching through the process has caused me to ask better questions, which wasn't always on my radar as a thing that I could do methodically as I come into that mindset of, fight or flight, or where you just feel the pressure, stepping back and asking a question about that feeling or about kind of where that's coming from, rather than going down the dark path of fear and worry or doubt and all of those things. That was a turning point for me in a lot of ways. That was probably more than about a year ago, at least a year into the Tap the Potential experience. So that was pretty important.
For our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with Change Your Questions, Change Your Life, and question thinking and cue storming, could you share maybe like a situation where your old approach would have been, to how you would have reacted, and what you do differently now, and maybe some questions that you've used?
I'll pull one from a business context that my partner and I, one of the things that we have been working on and talking about is trying to build a platform. Again, going back to what we talked about earlier, where we build a system where the pieces move and we don't have to do most of the turning and the working, but the system will kind of operate and then we can be free to manage it. And so in doing that, he and I have had many discussions, and I remember one where we really stopped and thought and went deep and talked about how that system could look. And this was kind of early in the journey. And so I had just read the Change Your Questions book, and each time he would bring up something like a question or an issue or maybe his ideas, that were about how to make a system. Maybe in the past, those ideas might have concerned me, or I would feel like, immediately my sense of being more right, being the one that maybe knows more about how things are going in certain ways in the business, or just having my own biases about technology, because I tend to be quite a bit involved with the technology aspects of the business. And so anyway, I had my ideas of how things should be. So when he presents his ideas, in the past, I think I would have just felt maybe more judgmental about it and less inclined to listen and more inclined to explain myself and explain my position, and then maybe dispute or argue about why his idea was or wasn't the right way to do it. And so instead, the Change Your Questions and the coach approach gives you the tools to step back and ask questions instead when you feel yourself going down that path where you're just going to jump in and start trying to explain things to people. One of the nuggets of advice that I learned from Dr. Sabrina here was that, if you really want people to follow your advice, don't give it. I love that. Yeah, so normally my approach would be to just explain why everything should be a certain way and shoot down these ideas that he was having. But instead, I asked those questions like, all right, so, why do you come up? What is this idea coming from? Or why do you think this is the right way to do it? And looking for those better questions to draw out of him the explanations of why. And before you know it, we're coming up with better ideas together with synergy than we would have come up with maybe if it was just one or the other of us.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
because if you had started reacting to what he was sharing, you would have shut down the conversation, or it could have gotten defensive, and it's just not going to be nearly as productive. So just asking questions.
Yeah.
Very powerful. How does that show up for you now in your leadership role with team members?
Asking questions that's critical everywhere now. I feel like I use this a lot with my children as well, just trying to help them solve problems instead of just trying to solve it for them, giving them the answers, telling them what to do. It's much more meaningful to ask a question about something in an open-ended way that lets them explain the answer. And in doing so, they hear themselves provide, their own solution to the problem. And maybe if it's not the best solution, then maybe they ask you something, instead of you having to just come to them and try and force it into their mind.
Yeah, this stuff doesn't just stay in the business. It spills over in a positive way, I hope. And it seems to in our clients' lives, into their families, and especially with spouses and children. A lot of times we hear at Tap the Potential that I'm getting along better with my kids, I'm getting along better with my spouse. And it's because of the communication tools and leadership tools. And oftentimes it's easier to apply those tools in the business with team members first. And then I know real change is happening when someone like yourself, Jake, starts talking about, I'm using this with my kids. Because kids are hard. They can pull us back into our primitive state faster than anybody.
Absolutely. I have a very free and open relationship with my employees. I feel it's very comfortable, and I don't have anybody here that I feel like I can't really connect with. And so, I mean, that's a gift. I really appreciate that. But, the coach approach and then asking those questions, it serves me really well in that way that I do want to help people develop. And even though we have really free communication and everyone will listen and follow, and that, you give somebody a gift when you ask them a thoughtful question.
Absolutely. That asking a thoughtful question and listening to the answer, that is the greatest gift I think we can give another human being.
Yeah, I've grown to appreciate it more through this process.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of being a gift, one of your gifts that you're amazing with is the culture that you've created within your business, and not just among your team, but with your clients too. And I've heard this from other people. I haven't heard it from Jake. Jake doesn't talk. He's not somebody to brag, but I've heard it from others who've been involved with your business, what the culture is like. So because you have such a handle on that, can you share with our profit designers what you're really mindful of in doing that's creating this culture with your business?
Oh, thanks. Appreciate those words. For me, it's about trust mostly, that my employees feel trusted and that they feel regarded, that they know that I'm, a brother first and, a boss is kind of second. And that if they feel that they're able to make decisions and do their job independently, and that I'm not having to look over their shoulder and worry, about what they're doing, that is the culture, really. That's what seems to create the environment that we have, where there's very little micromanagement happening, mainly because I think people have grown to feel trusted. And I feel like I've been able to find A players that can be trusted that way. And if they can't be trusted, or if they turn out that they're not really the right type of person, then they find their way out of the business pretty soon. They don't last in this environment too well, just because of the amount of trust that's required and the amount of independence or resourcefulness that's required. They won't really make it, because I do require them to be independent.
Mm-hmm. So you brought up A players. You've successfully recruited some A players since I've known you. What are you looking for in an A player for your team?
I look for potential. I look for signs that somebody maybe has been overlooked in other places, where they will appreciate the environment that I offer. If they've been, I don't want to say if they've been abused, or like in a work environment where they haven't felt appreciated. When they come here, they feel like, wow, this is really good. This is different. And to feel that appreciation, to feel the trust is, for some people, that really drives them to another level. So I feel like I can spot potential in people who are, who can communicate a certain way and who have shown that kind of grit or resourcefulness in other areas that I've seen them, or like during an interview, they'll tell me about things that show me they have that grit.
So it's the potential, and that they're coming from an environment where they have not been appreciated. And in the legal profession, there's a lot of high pressure jobs out there, and you've created something different in your culture.
I definitely wouldn't want to work in many of the other law firms that I've ever seen or heard about. I just wouldn't want to be there, because I know what that culture is. So yes, we are purposefully trying to be different in that way of not having that adversarial high pressure environment. We have pressure just because there is work to do and there are deadlines, but creating additional pressure just by personality, having a more tension or a more like a type A personality over everything just creates unnecessary pressure on people. That's what I find.
Yeah. Well, and I think when it comes to recruiting, being able to position your business as being very different in your industry, it's kind of like a refuge for A players in the legal profession, right? They have an opportunity to come and work and be appreciated and not have the competitiveness and the kind of just harsh environment that exists in a lot of legal firms.
We have recruited quite a few people just from no legal experience, just coming from other customer service kind of roles, where to me, that's the key is I can train you how to create the paperwork that we do pretty easily. Can you communicate really well with people? Do you connect with people? Are you responsive? Do you like people? Do you want to please them? And so those kind of things make our clients feel like, even though you didn't do things the fastest, or maybe you weren't, the result wasn't the desired result every single time, people who connect with my clients, who can really make that relationship happen and then connect with the other team members in here, that's the kind of person that really thrives here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know you've done the people map. A lot of our clients at Tap the Potential do the people map and have team members doing that. What are some things you've been more aware of since you've incorporated people map?
I just want to say I love people map, actually. I kind of thought, and maybe in the beginning I didn't appreciate what it meant. Maybe I thought that was kind of a mumbo jumbo kind of thing, like, oh, you're more of a people person, or you're more of a leader, or whatever. And I think since, again, going through the process and Tap the Potential of, trying to identify strengths and weaknesses myself and in the business, that people map makes a lot of sense, that you would strategically understand your strengths and weaknesses and then go about building the support infrastructure around yourself to compensate for those things you do not have as much of, to build those people around you who can make up for your differences, make up for your gaps. And so I've really seen that and understood it better at work and everywhere else in my life, just understanding like, hey, people have their different strengths. I'm not expecting them to be another kind of person than they are. That's okay. Let them be strong in what they're good at, and then help them and support them in the things where they're not as good. Build up safety nets and guardrails around the things that they're not as strong in. Doing the same for myself, appreciating the strengths and kind of minimizing the weaknesses.
Yeah. It's so easy for us business owners to feel like we need to be everything to everyone and we have to have it all together. And I think with People Map, we start to recognize I have my areas of strength, and the things that I'm not strong in, those things, I don't need to keep pushing myself to be better and better at something that I'm just not going to be good at. That's why we have teams, right? We can bring people onto the team who can compensate in those areas, and they have strengths. And that's where we really get to let them shine.
Absolutely. So I'm not the most task-minded person. And so I'm trying to build up systems or people around me that are going to provide that strength. Or, a lot of times just if there isn't the structure, I'm working out of my weaknesses more. And you can feel that. Nobody likes to work from their weaknesses, right? That just doesn't feel good. So recognizing that and not feeling bad, it's like, it's okay. That's not your thing. Don't worry. There are people who that is their thing. That's what they're there for.
Yeah. I'm curious, did you have any challenge around getting team members to accept that they can let something go if it's not a strength? Like when you're identifying that they're tasked with something and they're really struggling, and then it just becomes clear it's not a strength. Is it hard to get them to let go?
Well, I think what can be hard is when you're building the system around those people or putting up the guardrails and trying to help them, sometimes they may see that as like you're not confident in them, in their ability. So yes, you have to build up on the things that they're good at and give them lots of reinforcement about those things, and then just say, look, I have my challenges too. I'm working in these areas, and so that's why I need you here, because you're helping me through that thing that I'm not as strong in, or, just kind of relating to them in that way. But definitely there is a strong tendency that people will feel offended or hurt when you're trying to even subtly build up that, support around their weaknesses, because they're going to feel like that weakness is being exposed.
Mm.
They feel vulnerable. So you want to do that delicately and in a way where you really do say, hey, your strengths are so important to me that, I would go through a lot and invest a lot of resources in building the things around you that are going to help you succeed in what you're really good at, And when they hear that, I think that does help them overcome the perhaps initially the feeling that you're putting a light on things that are not what they feel they're the best at. And a lot of us want to think we're really good at things or kind of hide those things that we're not as good at. So yeah, bringing it out and bring it into the light can be a little uncomfortable sometimes. But there are ways to minimize the impact of that exposure.
I really like how you phrased that I want to invest in, I can't remember the exact words, but essentially it was investing in their strengths. I would much rather invest in helping you and grow your strengths. We get so much out of our A players when we invest in their strengths. They really shine. It's amazing. It's really fun to watch that process.
Yeah, they do. I think giving people that opportunity to grow and to learn, that's kind of what I was saying earlier about spotting potential and then giving them that opportunity. So taking somebody who's worked as a grocery clerk, for example, for many years, and then saying, hey, look, I'll bring you in, teach you how to do things that you can now become, a legal assistant or a paralegal or something like that. That's a huge opportunity. That's a game changer.
Yeah.
And so somebody I know can make that transition. If I feel confident they can do it, they will feel so happy to be there and just excited to come to work every day for that opportunity to grow.
Absolutely. They'll appreciate it. And I know in the small business world, I hear a lot of business owners talking about, I'm so concerned about bringing someone in and training them and then I'll lose them.
That I would say, better to have loved and lost than to never love at all, right? Or whatever that saying is, something that you cannot fear losing something you love. You just have to give that love and don't hold it back, worrying about what is or isn't going to happen.
Yeah, fear is a very restrictive feeling. And the opposite of fear is love. And right. Love is open and allows us to grow, our team members to grow. But when we make decisions out of fear, we play small and we constrict.
Well, and I think we send a message to the team that we're afraid or we're fearful or we're concerned. It's putting a shadow over things. Mm-hmm. So I think that we should feel confident enough to know, like, hey, people love it here. Why would they ever want to leave?
Yeah.
Shrug. I don't know.
Yeah.
At the same time, if people are leaving and there is a sense that maybe the culture could be better, I don't think can't ignore that. If people do leave, we should look at what's going on and try to understand and look at ourselves and figure out, what needs to be done to make the culture in a way that people don't want to leave. Why would they ever want to leave? It's too good.
What are some of the questions you ask when you have a team member leaving?
I think question I would ask is, did I make a strong effort to connect with that person? Did I invest in the relationship with them personally, myself? Then I would wonder if other people did, or how I connected them or aligned them with other people in the business. Did they have support? Did they feel it? Another nugget I learned from you has been that the weakest, or I would say the least productive person on your team could be your greatest liability. That idea is so important to me, that nobody should be feeling left out or overlooked or smoldering somewhere, but that everybody should feel like an A player, or that they're contributing and excited to be there. If they're not, and they're not producing, they're not going to feel right, and then bad things are going to happen. And in the last couple of years, I've had a few things that happened that were really challenging, mainly stemming from a situation where I feel like I didn't have that personal involvement and develop, that person within the business in a way that normally would happen. just by certain circumstances, it didn't go the way it normally should go. And it underscored again to me the importance of making that connection with each person, or that somebody has to make it. That person needs to feel connected. Everybody should feel it.
Yeah. And I really appreciate, when I asked you which questions would you be asking when someone's leaving, you went to looking at yourself first. And what was my role in this? And did I connect? Because that really is the very first piece when we're onboarding a new employee that we have to be mindful of is, are we helping them to get connected here and build those relationships and the trust? I think a lot of times when we're onboarding, our tendency is just to focus on, got to get this paperwork filled out, check these boxes, compliance. And it's really about the relationships and the connections.
I think if we're not prepared to make that investment and connect or create the environment where they are getting connected, we shouldn't be hiring, because it's going to create the problems that we're just talking about, where they're going to feel like they're not progressing. They're going to feel like they're not adapting. They may feel on the margin, that they're just not there. And if they feel like they're being left out, all sorts of bad things are going to happen.
Yeah. We're not at our best as human beings when we feel left out.
Yeah. Left out, like they're moving backward. They're going to be looking for other things to do, other places to work. They're going to be looking for an exit strategy and just not thinking about the job at hand. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to be thinking nice things about you. And,
yeah.
As a people person, for me, it's important that people are thinking nice things about me a lot of the time. So, and if they're not thinking about me at all, it's a lot better than thinking unkind things, but it's not stroking my people personality to just not have people thinking at all about it, that I didn't spend the time to make it a good experience for them to come on board.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's shift gears here a little bit, Jake. You are a 2-time alumni of the Breakthroughs on the Bayou Retreat. You've been 2 years in a row. You're coming back in 2020. And here on the podcast recently, we've been giving inside glimpses into the culture of Breakthroughs on the Bayou and our retreat participants. Can you talk a little bit about what your experience has been like?
Well, I love that the retreat center is your home. It's a beautiful home, and it's like plantation style, in the bayou there, and it's just really neat. I like that. Again, that aligns well with my kind of open nature about, just making it a homey feeling in my business as well as my business relationships with people. So, yeah, even though it's a business retreat, there is a very warm feeling there. And I think you mentioned, like, people get off the bus to come to the retreat. There are hugs. And, like, for me, I wanted to bring something, like, from my kind of hominess. One night during the retreat, I cooked a home-cooked meal, something that I like to share. So giving from my gifts, trying to give something, and that's one of the ways I like to show love is just by creating things that people like to eat and sharing it. There's a lot of that happening there, that people are connecting in ways that, again, despite being a business retreat, you are learning from each other in ways how to kind of nurture one another and how to build up each other as entrepreneurs in a way that just feels natural and kind of with a type of fellowship or friendship that prevails there.
Yes, and I want to say something about this being a gift from your gifts. That's become a big theme at the retreat, that we really look for opportunities for people, our participants, to be a gift from their gifts and share something from their gifts with the others there, because that's part of our growing and learning, but it also just creates the experience of connection. And when you offered to cook at the retreat, my initial thought was, I don't want to put Jake on the spot. He's coming here. He's supposed to be relaxing and letting down. And you repeatedly assured me, no, this is fun for me. I want to do this. This feels good. And it was the most amazing meal. It was so good. And the camaraderie that developed around it, because we had several participants who hopped in the kitchen with you and were helping. And then there was other conversation happening around as the meal was being prepared and people were relaxed and talking. And I don't know how to put words on that feeling of we get together and we're learning new things about the business and about leadership and how to be more effective. But at the end of the day, I think the most valuable things are happening in those conversations and connections that are not sitting there listening to Mike Michalowicz and I talk about, the latest business things that could be done to make the business better.
Going into the retreat with questions or with specific concerns, and a lot of those are going to come out, hence the breakthroughs aspect. You're going to come out of the retreat with specific epiphanies or kind of awareness of things that maybe were challenges. Seeing people, again, there's quite a bit of vulnerability there where people will talk about their struggles or their victories and a lot of just everything in between. So, when that's happening, and again, to have a lot of those kind of that closeness develop in a short span of time is something that I think is pretty remarkable, because just a lot of people coming together like that it just seems like most people would come with their guards up a little bit. And that kind of doesn't really happen at the retreat. That guards are down, everybody's open, and we're all there to learn and grow.
I think the guards are up on the bus until the bus pulls in the driveway and the hugs start. And then the guards come down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
For new participants coming in, it's, they're coming into a group of 20, 25 business owners that some of them have been together at the retreat for several years. It can feel a little intimidating. And we're real good at just welcoming people in, helping them to get comfortable pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, last year with John Bates, that was really, really good to have him the first day, bringing everybody out of their shell and teaching them how to give a TED quality talk, wait, we're going to do that with a bunch of strangers and get up and talk about my superhero backstory, It was just really cool. And I was so amazed at how people really took the challenge, and just seeing people emerge out of their shell in these really fun ways. People that seem like sleepers a lot of times just come out, and shine. And it's a lot of fun.
Well, and speaking of epiphanies and things kind of coming out, in our first retreat, not our first retreat, but the first one you attended, when we did the no cell phone challenge, and you put your cell phone in that basket and we whisked it away to an undisclosed location, and you were away from your cell phone for a full day, and you did that for several days in a row. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd purposefully set down my cell phone for any extended period of time before the retreat. And taking that challenge, it brought me back to a different time, like before cell phones. And for maybe, anybody listening, if you're old enough to remember what it was like before cell phones, it was a little quieter. It was a little less busy with noise and disruption or distraction, because each time your phone beeps or buzzes, you're thinking about something else. And so to put the phone away and just to be in the moment and think about what's going on and just enjoying the people around me and trying to get more out of the experience in the retreat really magnified, I think, my ability to take in what was happening and to get more out of it. But on top of that, it just felt like, wow, this is a place, or this is a kind of, I would say, it's the kind of peace that I miss quite a bit. It was a great experience. It felt really good. And it was something that kind of surprised me at the time.
How did you take that out of the retreat? What impact has that had since the retreat? Because that was 2 years ago.
Well, I was excited to take the challenge again the second time I went to the retreat, but there have been a few times that I've purposefully unplugged. I'm encouraging my family to unplug more. So I don't know. I feel like I've learned that you really do need to step away from distractions when you're trying to do something important, and that is a good way to give yourself the space to change and to grow. Whereas if we just try to be doing everything all the time and keeping up with everything, that's not really sustainable.
No, it's not. It wears us down very quickly. Another kind of key moment for you, I think, at the retreat, the first time you attended was the vision board. I really saw that connect some things for you. Can you speak to that experience?
Yeah, I love the vision board. And I think the idea of looking at like a clean canvas or, just a blank canvas and adding images of things that are meaningful to you, that could be very, very powerful if you allow yourself to, to really just put it out there, regardless of who's looking at it. I wasn't really worried about who was looking at it or what was happening. And I put the things there that were important to me, and to see it in with images and just something for me to hold and look at, identified some things that I really wanted to focus on and allowed it to happen in a way that was creative and fun. And I was a little bit surprised at kind of the themes that were there and how strong they were. And so I have it at home on my, next to my bed, and I look at it quite a bit still.
Yeah, it's something that really anchors us and pulls us back to what's important. I have mine right in eyesight every day when I'm working, and I love it. I think it's time to update one. We're definitely bringing the vision boards into the 2020 retreat because that is such a powerful experience. And, I collect magazines all over, like doctor's offices, libraries, friends. I'm like, give me your old magazines. They probably wonder, what is she doing with all those magazines in her house? But it is, when the magazines come out and the scissors and the poster board and the glue sticks, it's almost like we're back in kindergarten again and we're doing an art project, but that's where the conversations start flowing too.
Yeah. I'm glad to say I wasn't the kid that ate the paste. I don't know if you remember that kid, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not now either. Yeah. So it's fun to see what other people are thinking and where their ideas are coming from, and to notice patterns or trends, and just to see that as entrepreneurs, what people are thinking about. And again, a little bit going back to like our small group where you can see people coming from diverse backgrounds. We all have similar goals. Every business has got some different kind of function, but really at the end of the day, we're all kind of doing the same things. Even I'm in a law practice or someone else is selling, some widget or whatever. It's much of the same. And the things that drive us and concern us, our fears, everything is, it's universal for the most part.
Yeah. And there's a lot of diversity at the retreat too, just across different businesses and industries, and the small groups as well. I'm curious from your perspective, Jake, you've been at the retreat now twice. You're coming back for the third time. I don't know how many spots we have open when this episode drops. I know right now as we're recording, I think we've got 6 or 7 spots. In your opinion, who is this retreat right for? Who is really going to enjoy it and benefit and just appreciate the different business owners that are there?
Well, I think somebody who is looking for inspiration about their next step. I think that kind of person who is trying to find the path for, the next leg of the journey. And I think in the process of being at the retreat, meeting all the other people, hearing about their challenges, but also, again, their successes, because there's a lot of very successful people who are there talking about things that are working and then where they're going. So you'll see people in a full spectrum of like, oh, there's somebody in the startup, there's a person who's been in business for 20, 30 years, and again, everything in between, or, different phases of their career. So somewhere within all of that, maybe it's, during one of the, it could be just going through your brainstorming or other kinds of sessions, somewhere you're going to get inspiration about what you need to be doing next. And that's one of the questions I came with the last time is, what do I need to be doing next? What's next? I think a lot of people are asking that question. And so that to me is the type of person that probably would want to be at the retreat.
Mm-hmm. And just to highlight what you just shared, we encourage you to come into the retreat with a few or one question. The question may change while you're there. And we even go so far as to put our questions on our name tags. So we put our name and then we put our powerful question. And that opens up conversations right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of great questions. And everybody at the retreat has a lot of awesome answers too, of things that they can offer. from experience. And again, sharing from their gifts and strengths. There's so much experience and wealth of knowledge. But yeah, lots of good questions are going to emerge, and people are going to get inspiration there.
Yeah. So, Jake, as we wrap up today, I'm curious if you would be able to share some words of wisdom. If you could go back and talk to yourself, maybe the you 3 or 4 years ago, who was in a stuck place, knowing what you know now, what would you say to that person?
So, to that person, I would say that it's time to confront some of the things you've been avoiding. And it's time to be open to change and to grow, and to set that expectation that it's going to be a little bit of a confrontation with the status quo, that things are stuck because of specific challenges or gaps that you face as a person. And it's not just your business, and it's not just numbers. There's things in you that have to change. And so finding out what those are, working it through, not running away, not hiding, not turning your back, but kind of exposing it, putting the light on it, turning the rock over, watching everything squirm away, just dealing with it and taking on that challenge. And at the same time, making those, tweaks and changes to the business along that path. To me, it's more of a personal journey in dealing with those challenges, telling myself so long ago that this journey would be personally challenging that way, and being ready for it, but not to be afraid that there's a soft landing in many ways. Yeah.
The landing is soft.
The landing is pleasant because I think there's a lot of support there.
Mm-hmm.
So not to worry. There's guides along the path. There's a good system in place to help you not, buckle and cave, but that you can do it, and you've just got to stay the course.
Those are some powerful words of wisdom. Very inspiring.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
Thanks for the chance to share.
Yeah, I appreciate you being with us, and I think you have sparked some aha moments for sure in our profit designers who are listening.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Are you ready to be the leader you need to be to have the business that gives you your life back? If so, you may be a good fit for our small group coaching program at Tap the Potential. You can apply directly by going to profitgift.com. All one word, profitgift.com. What are you waiting for? Your life is waiting for you. Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. Share your thoughts on today's episode, ask us questions, and let us know what you want to hear about next. Visit our website at profitbydesignpodcast.com to access resources from our sponsors and tools we've created for you. Subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to right now. There's a subscribe button right there. Go ahead and hit it so that you always get a notification when we release a new episode. And finally, share our podcast with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Thanks again for listening. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.